I'm Russ Jaffe, an internist, immunologist, Ph.D. biochemist, certified clinical nutritionist, and I maintain fellow status in the American Society for Clinical Pathology, the American College of Nutrition. I'm a scientific fellow of the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. I'm a fellow of the Federation of Clinical Immunology Societies, as well as the American Medical Laboratory Immunologist, and an overseas fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine. I'm a fellow of the Health Studies Collegium Research Foundation, and director and founder of PERC Integrative Health and ELISAACT Biotechnologies. Now, chronic fatigue syndrome, what is it? What does it mean? And what, from a physiologic point of view, can we do about it? Well, it actually has many different names in many different contexts. What we call chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, or chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, CFIDS, is also known as post-viral fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalopathy, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and may link to a much earlier term called neurasthenia, DaCosta syndrome, and even what it sometimes were called chronic infectious mononucleosis. So there are many aspects, facets to chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'd like to present the physiology approach, understanding the causes and addressing the obstacles to recovery as our approach to the successful management of chronic fatigue syndrome. Well, what about this chronic fatigue syndrome? What is its prevalence and what are the challenges? Well, there's more than a million Americans have had unexplained fatigue for more than 6 months. It crosses all ethnic groups and income levels. Subjects are usually 40 or more years of age, but age of onset can vary quite a bit. It's 4 times more likely in women, and there may be, but have not yet been confirmed, genetic or epigenetic familial influences. Let's look at chronic fatigue syndrome, if you will, from the inside, from the brain-body connections. And here we find the triad in the top, that triangle at the very top. You see immune mediators, neurotransmitters, and neuroendocrine or neurohormonal factors. Those are the 3 aspects of what we physiologically call the control system of the body. The integration of neuroimmunohormonal communications between the central nervous system brain diagrammed here and the gut nervous system that we'll get to that runs in parallel. Now, in terms of central nervous system symptoms, you look on the right and they are unexplained fatigue, unexplained pain, neurocognitive changes, inability to concentrate and remember as well as before, mood alterations with reactive depression, anxiety, and a loss of restorative sleep. If we look at what may be disposing risk factors, on the left, we see if the immune system has lost its ability to keep infections at bay, if you have chronic infections and an impaired immune system because of it, if you have psychological distress, if you have internal conflicts that you are unable to resolve, they become stressful to the control system of the body, to the neuroimmunohormonal control system. There may be genetic dispositions, environmental influences, gene-environment interactions, what we call epigenetics, is a particularly important area from our point of view for further studies. And we see in this diagram, starting with the blue arrows, that the neuroendocrine pathways, that is the hormones that come out of the brain, go to the pituitary, the master gland, and then to other glands, including the adrenals. Then there are the sympathetic nervous system pathways that regulate pulse and blood pressure and perfusion. Then there are the pathways shown in kind of gold. These are immune reactivities where tolerance in the immune system has been broken and where backup systems are being relied upon often to the point where they have become overexcited and exhausted. And then we see on the right that both the immune system and the neurohormonal system interact with the GI tract, the gut nervous system, altered bowel habits, particularly long transit time, abdominal pain from spasms that may occur due to dysmotility, and there's often in the background maldigestion, dysbiosis, impaired repair because the immune system is so preoccupied with defense work. And at the sensory level, we see that musculoskeletal systems, this is also on the right as you're looking at the slide, can exacerbate or provoke myalgia, muscle pains, arthralgias, joint pains. And so very often there's a deadaptation syndrome. The body does not remember to repair itself well, and it begins to atrophy or lose capability, in part because of the easy fatigability, but also because of the lack of resilience factors that come in when the body is not as active as it needs to be. Now, what are the diagnostic criteria? Because they are very specific at this point. The first diagnostic criteria is more than 6 months of fatigue, not due to ongoing exertion or other medical conditions. So unexplained fatigue for more than 6 months. The second is fatigue that significantly interferes with daily activities and work. This is more than just being tired and needing a good night's sleep. This is easy fatigability or persistent fatigue that interferes with activities of daily living. And the next point, the third point, is more than 4 out of 8 symptoms. I'm now going to give those 8. You need more than 4 of the following. Number 1, more than 24 hours post-exertion malaise, that if you do try to exercise, you actually feel wiped out for the next day. Unrefreshing sleep or lack of restorative sleep, short-term memory or concentration issues, muscle pain, joint pain without swelling or redness, headaches that are of a new type or pattern or severity, tender lymph nodes in the neck or armpit, frequent or recurring sore throats. 4 or more of these 8 need to be concurrent, need to be present. And a number of these from the, starting from the bottom of the list, a number of these, including the frequent and recurring sore throats, the tender lymph nodes in the neck or armpit, the new kinds of pain as headache, joint pain without swelling or redness, these are all indications of impaired immune defense and repair competence. The immune system is not repairing efficiently. It does appear to have more defense work of an unspecified nature going on, too much defense, too little repair. And the consequence is first activation in the immune system, and then when the problem continues, when some block to recovery prevents the immune system from restoring tolerance, the immune system continues in an overly active but not functionally competent way. So chronic fatigue syndrome has neuroendocrine, immune, digestive, detoxification, and cognitive components. And now, taking our usual approach, let's look at the latest ideas and literature. In the last few years, there had been quite a bit of activity about a xenotropic murine leukemia virus, XMRV, and its link to chronic fatigue syndrome. Now it appears that some of those studies are having difficulty being replicated, and that may be an adventitious finding that XMRV is not the viral cause of chronic fatigue syndrome. So we're left with a condition for which there's no known cause, and it is indeed multifaceted, so that chronic fatigue syndrome you can think of as sitting in the center of a axis, and from chronic fatigue syndrome there's likely to be the potential for overlap with thyroiditis leading to hypothyroidism, to musculoskeletal pain that persists despite painkillers, fibromyalgia, what's called Gulf War syndrome, as well as Lyme disease. So chronic fatigue syndrome can overlap with, can masquerade as, can have concomitants with thyroid dysfunction, thyroiditis that leads to repair deficit that leads to low thyroid activity, fibromyalgia, lack of repair of the muscle-nerve junction, leading to extra substance P and acids that impair function. And some of the soldiers returning from Gulf War syndrome have a chronic fatigue syndrome that has not yet been fully resolved or understood, and Lyme disease, a chronic infection linked to rickettsia and Borrelia. However, what we want to focus on is what obstacle to recovery, what essential requirement is the immune system not getting, or what extra toxic load is it getting that prevent it from dealing with the rickettsia or Borrelia associated with Lyme. Now, what about the link between depression and infections? And here we see some interesting boxes and arrows, and I'm going to start on the left and move to the right of the slide. On the middle of the left, we see that psychological stress, unresolved mental conflict, HIV infection, autoimmune disorders, physical stressors, whether they be bacterial infections or viral infections or any infectious agent. If the immune system first responders are able to engulf, break down, and recycle whatever is foreign, then the immune system is strong. But when the immune system loses its tolerance, when it needs to work harder to repair, then inflammation, which is really cumulative repair deficit, comes in. And we see that in the form of increase in cyclooxygenase 2, increase in COX-2, increase in NF-kappa B, increase in cytokines, all efforts of the body to stimulate repair. With regard to oxidative signals and nitrous oxide issues, there's an increase in nitric oxides that, if it persists, can damage lipids, proteins, and DNA if antioxidants are not sufficient to mitigate those reactive and activated electrons. Mitochondrial dysfunctions can happen where the electron isn't shuttled through the mitochondria to produce energy, rather the electron gets free and becomes a oxidation risk. Decreased antioxidants are at the heart of this, such as low coenzyme Q10, depletion of minerals like zinc, but also magnesium, tocopherols, the vitamins E. Any of the antioxidants being deficient can potentiate this dilemma. Leaky gut, or a decreased beneficial omega-3 fatty acids compared to omega-6. Or any of the conditions where the body has lost its immune tolerance, is attacking itself, what we call autoimmunity. But really what we're saying when we say autoimmunity is that the immune system has lost its first responder neutralization capacity and is so accumulated in regard to repair deficit that it begins to confuse itself with something foreign because of that repair deficit. And from a physiologic point of view, we want to remove the obstacle to recovery, get the essential nutritives and ingredients in, and enhance the ability of the body to remove toxic waste matter so that it can restore a resilient immune defense and repair system. You see in the lower left predisposing factors such as induction of IgG antibodies and induction of certain nucleotides that are upregulated, are enhanced whenever the body has a repair deficit. We'll talk later about the limitations of antibodies and the importance of functional measurements. And you see that a consequence of this, the arrow coming down and to the right, is that there's a 2,5-oligoadenylate synthetase, or RNase L, that is specifically associated with this cumulative repair deficit and links to, and may be causally related to, ME/CFS, myalgic encephalitis / chronic fatigue syndrome, and the overlap that that has with major depression is seen in this Venn diagram, where you see the overlap between depression and the ME/CFS continuum, and the links that this has to basic physiologic biochemical control. It's a bit complex on the slide, but the essence is the following. When you get all and enough of the good things in, the essential antioxidants, minerals, and other factors the body needs to repair itself, and when you get the toxic waste products out by hydration and alkaline balance and enabled detoxification, making more water soluble for removal of the toxic matter, the body can rehabilitate itself and renew capabilities. Now, with regard to CFIDS or CFS, chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, I think is the most descriptive term. There's a decrease in function of the natural killer cells. These are the ones that are supposed to identify and eliminate cancer cells every day. There's an increase in the number of destructive T cells and an increase in the percentage of T cells expressing activation markers. In other words, the reserve forces, the T cell forces of the immune system, are increasingly called upon for defense and repair work because the first responders, the phagocytic dendritic cells, the second responders, the adaptive immune system, has not been sufficient to the task, and so the body is increasing the T cell repertoire, but with the potential for overactivation and destructive autoimmune T cells to form. CFIDS and chronic fatigue syndrome is associated with activation of several pro-inflammatory cytokines, again reflecting the repair deficit, dysregulation of that 2,5 RNA ACE antiviral pathway, indicating immune burdens, predominance of Th2 cellular immunity, again saying that more backup forces in the immune system are needed, and differential expression of gene markers whose production causes T cell activation. So the body epigenetically modifies the gene pool to stimulate the immune system's reserves, the T cells, to take action. Now, if we try to simplify this for the moment, CFS and chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome start with inflammation. Inflammation is really repair deficit. That breakdown in the body's complex checks and balances, what we call homeostasis or self-regulation. When the repair deficit accumulates as what we call inflammation, chronic diseases likely come forward. We, of course, have rethought inflammation as repair deficit, as obstacles to repair or recovery. And our goal in all of the contingent areas that surround the center is to repair and enhance the ability to recover by correcting deficits at an individual level, the biochemical individual needs to restore immune defense and repair competence, neurohormonal resilience, digestive detoxification capabilities. And if you look straight at the top, this applies to cardiovascular diseases, and as we come around clockwise to the right, it applies to adult diabetes type 2, to Alzheimer's. Some people consider that diabetes of the brain, premature senility, arthritis, both rheumatoid autoimmune arthritis and osteoarthritis, a biomechanical loss of joint function due to lack of repair. Other autoimmune diseases, neurologic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, pulmonary diseases, cancer, all of these reflect inflammation, and inflammation being repair deficit, we felt that we could look initially at autoimmune diseases, then at cardiovascular, and now even at immune problems with cancer, and see that lack of recovery leading to swelling, what we call inflammation, is an opportunity to correct deficits and enhance the capacity to get toxic matter out of the body. Now, healthy immune responses mean that we have no allergies and we're tolerant. It means that our immune system neutralizes infections and allergens as they come in, repairs us from daily damage, and deletes cancer cells that form daily. And here you have a scanning electron micrograph on the left of a white blood cell recycling or engulfing and breaking down pathogens. The breakdown happens in the lysosome recycling center, and then the elemental building blocks, the amino acids, fatty acids, and carbohydrates, minerals, cofactors, and antioxidants, are all then liberated for use by the cell. The overloaded immune system means chronic illness. This means inflammation, which is really repair deficits. And seen as repair deficits, you see the opportunity rather than a fire to be fought, as I thought inflammation was before rethinking it. An overloaded immune system means pain due to swelling from the repair deficit as the body tries to bring in additional repair troops and cells and forces, and chronic degenerative autoimmune illness. In Townsend Letter for Doctors and Patients, we've had a series of articles. You're welcome to review those for additional details and clinical pearls. Now, physiology first, the Alkaline Way, focuses with regard to the immune system on tolerance, that is the ability of the immune system to distinguish us from the outside world, keep us tolerantly distinguished, and to recognize that when tolerance is lost, the host becomes hospitable to more or an overload of foreign reactive antigens, and whether they be infectious or non-infectious, they're equally foreign to the IDRS, the Immune Defense and Repair System. And back in the 1960s, Gell and Coombs identified 4 different types of mechanisms, and these are the architecture that we use today in immunology. So type 1 are the immediate acute reactions. These are IgE based and reflect a lack of IgG4 and are measurable by RAST and skin testing. Now type 2, type 3, and type 4 are delayed. There are multiple delayed pathways suggesting how important this is to the body. There are antibodies, which can be good or bad, immune complexes, as well as T cell or direct cell mediated responses, and a functional system like functional lymphocyte response assays are able to distinguish whether those antibodies are good or bad, as well as detect reactive immune complexes and direct T cell responses. So with regard to the immune system in chronic fatigue syndrome, we want to recognize that these people are often hospitable hosts to pathogens, that this is due to either food or other digestive remnants that distract and burden the immune system, so that when some foreign invader comes in, the body's not able to promptly recycle it and is hospitable to the infection persisting. So allergens provoke symptoms of repair that's deferred because defense work has to be done before repair. And LRA by ELISAACT tests are functional in that they identify the causes of immune overload, the harmful antibodies, but they don't get confused with the helpful antibodies. They detect the immune complexes as well as the T cell responses. And so it's a functional test that helps us distinguish the helpful from the harmful immune responses and focus on rehabilitating and resetting the harmful ones. Now, with regard to this LRA by ELISAACT, our laboratory is able to receive a simple 1 ounce 30 cc blood sample, and we can analyze for up to 490 LRA by ELISAACT ex vivo tests. That means an immune reaction using the patient's own plasma to incubate so that the reactions occur just as they do in the body, ex vivo, not test tube artifacts, not in vitro. And the widest number of foods, additives, and preservatives, environmental chemicals, toxic minerals, medications, mold, danders, hair, and feather, and herbs can be tested by the LRA by ELISAACT procedure. We want to identify reactive substances so that we can comprehensively substitute. The LRA by ELISAACT test identifies the common substances that are burdening the patient's immune system. We then substitute non-reactive items for the reactive ones. And if you have a moderate reaction, only 3 months avoidance, a strong reaction, 6 months avoidance, you are resetting the system and restoring it to a healthier, resilient, tolerant state. Lymphocyte response assays are functional. Here's a diagram that helps us understand this. the green wedges to that pie are the delayed pathways. Types 2, 3, and 4. Type 2 being the reactive IgG, reactive IgA, reactive IgM, or immune complexes, IgM, anti-IgG antigen, or T-cell mediated, direct type 4. All of these can concurrently be measured in the LRA by ELISAACT system. It is ex vivo, accurate, functional, comprehensive, with proven clinical outcomes. This we can use to find the causes of all delayed allergies. It is the most accurate and comprehensive delayed allergy test available, and my lab developed it so that we could offer you a more predictive and functional procedure than the static IgG antibodies that were previously available. Now, if we look at ELISAACT lymphocyte response assays, the whole blood sample that I mentioned is transported to the lab, kept cool but not too cold, between 4 and 10 degrees centigrade, until we warm it back up in the laboratory, gently spin out the red cells, take the cell-rich plasma, the lymphocyte-rich plasma, put that into a special microtiter plate, in essence 48 different dishes or wells on that plate, each one of which has a separate coating of the antigen in question. The lymphocyte response to antigen stimulation is measured and compared to internal and external controls. Every sample has a positive and negative control. The negative must look like what you see on the left, be non-reactive. The positive control must show reactive cells and must look something like what you see on the right. Every test has this negative and positive control. That then allows us to give you more predictive, more functional, more meaningful results. Lymphocyte response assays have proven outcome in a 6-month outcome study. We looked at fibromyalgia and found substantial overlap with chronic fatigue syndrome. The article that we published some years ago in the Journal of Musculoskeletal Pain is titled "A Novel Treatment for Fibromyalgia Improves Clinical Outcomes in a Community-Based Study." After just 6 months, the participants on average had 50% less pain, 50% less depression, 50% more energy, 30% less stiffness. We've also applied this to diabetes, and we find that the lymphocyte response assay by ELISAACT, again in a 6-month study in the community, starting with best standard of care and seeing what would happen. What we found is that tolerance loss in diabetes is associated with foreign antigen exposure, that in the study where people substituted for their LRA reactive items, ate a healthier diet with targeted supplementation and mental and physical activities to evoke healing responses, we had a 13% reduction in hemoglobin A1C, 46% reduction in type 1 diabetes, an 18% reduction in insulin levels in type 2 diabetes. And we now, over time, have a database of over 50,000 cases that allow us to compare individuals with others who have followed this approach so that we can recommend best potential outcomes. Here's an example of CFIDS and fibromyalgia as a case study. JM, a 36-year-old woman, was diagnosed at age 29. Her major symptoms were overall weakness, pain in the muscles, arms and legs, neck and back, headache, asthma-like, breathing problems sleeping, and stiff fingers. Initially, various pain medications and some nutritional supplements were used. The LRA by ELISAACT test was done, and 12 reactions, including cadmium, nitrosamine, tangerine, mandarin orange, pecan or pine nuts, a specific F, D, and C yellow number 6 color, titanium dioxide, MSG, millet, and rapeseed or canola oil. The implementation was to reduce immune burden by substituting for reactive items found on the LRA by ELISAACT test, avoid the strong reactions for 6 months, avoid the moderate reactors for at least 3 months, and take an alkaline diet, targeted supplementation, and mental and physical activities based on kind. In this case, the individual used a number of supplements. This was to facilitate repair by meeting specific nutrient needs. On the upper left of this set of pictures, you see Perk Potent C-Guard and Perk Pain Guard Forte, a combination of fully buffered, fully reduced all L-ascorbates. That is the Perk Potent C-Guard, as well as the Perk Pain Guard Forte, which is a flavonoid-flavonol combination to extend the capabilities, the functionalities of vitamin C. The individual also took the Perk Lifeguard, a comprehensive multi-tabsule with 40 meaningful ingredients in meaningful amounts. The individual also took the mitochondrial Perk MitoGuard 100 Plus to enhance CoQ10 uptake facilitated by rice bran oil with beneficial gamma-oryzanol and vitamins E that we add because if you need the CoQ10, you'll need a bit more vitamin E, and they go together enough that we thought they should be combined. Soluble magnesium salts, the Perk Mag Plus Guard, and the Magnesium Enhancer, the liquid Perk choline citrate that enhances magnesium uptake. And two additional supplements coming around to the top right, Perk EnduraPack Guard and Perk Digestiguard Forte. The Perk EnduraPack is recycled glutamine to enhance repair, and then Perk Digestiguard Forte for 10 different most active human implantable probiotic strains of organisms. The outcome was an initial slow improvement over the first month or so. Diet modifications were made, nutrient supplementation doses adjusted. The right food choices and careful supplementation helped. On retesting, JM showed continued sensitivity to cadmium and nitrosamine mix. Systematic substitution, alkalinization, and optimized nutritional supplement allowed JM to repair, rebuild her digestive competence, and ultimately heal her body. So we hear a lot about inflammation. When we look deeply, we've been able to rethink it at a more fundamental level as lack of repair and removing obstacles to recovery, getting in the essential nutrients and getting the toxic waste out, become opportunity areas to better manage cardiovascular disease, adult diabetes, Alzheimer's, arthritis, autoimmune disease, neurologic diseases, pulmonary diseases, and cancer. Now, the Health Studies Collegium has pioneered the Alkaline Way for evoking human healing responses. There really are human healing responses, and when we enable them, they work with us and for us. When we disable them, they work not at all, or not well at all. And evoking them means a combination of mental and physical activities, a focus on what we eat and drink, what we think and do, since that is 92% of what determines our health. And we find this physiology-first approach highly effective at evoking human healing responses through the Alkaline Way. Now, there's a WellGuard program. This is physiology first in practice. This is to restore competences, immune tolerance, neurohormonal balance, and digestive and detoxification abilities. And if you want to know how to do that in clinical practice, please contact us at clientservices2@perque.com. There are 3 steps to the WellGuard program. The first is to determine the client's status by an online or paper health assessment questionnaire, an HAQ. The next step is LRA by ELISAACT tests to find the hidden allergens. And the third step is the personal Perk supplementation program. Now, the Alkaline Way has to do with eating what you can digest, assimilate, and eliminate within healthy homeostasis or immune tolerance. An alkaline diet saves lives. It's the most simple way I can say it. An alkaline diet buffers the metabolic acids produced each day and allows the body to function in the alkaline better mode, even though it's acidic by design, acidic in that it produces metabolic acids that the extra alkaline elements of the diet must neutralize, lest acidosis, metabolic acidosis, get started, and when it becomes severe, become quite symptomatic. So we want to enhance immune competences and stop the burden on the immune system. We want to comprehensively identify the functional, better for you types 2, 3, and 4 delayed immune reactions. And this is best done by an LRA by ELISAACT test with functional tests that identify the causes of immune overload. The benefits of the Alkaline Way program are to neutralize excess cell acids and sustain well-being, to restore digestive and immune system competences and health, and to regain tolerance in immune reactivities so that we're not so reactive to the outside world. One of the approaches that's very important here is to check for excess metabolic acid. You see here three zones, blue on the left, green in the middle, right. This is to check after 6 hours of rest the next voided urine, because that's equilibrated with the cells. The healthy zone is 6.5 to 7.5. If you have more than that net acid, you'll have a pH below 6.5. That is indicative, since it's a logarithmic scale, each numerical unit is a factor of 10. If you have a little bit excess metabolic acid, that is an issue and indicates the need for more buffering minerals or buffering elements in the body. And if your first morning urine pH is more than 7.5, that suggests catabolic illness and the body is tearing itself down. We recommend the healthy path of moderation, the middle path, as more likely to be healthy. We recommend that folks have a log. This allows you to record the date on which you measured time, what the pH level was, and then we suggest adding a fourth column, and that says, how do you feel? How do you feel now in relation to your first morning urine pH? And so many people have said, the days when I'm more acid on that first morning urine pH strip test, those are the days when I'm more symptomatic and I really feel more hopeless. The days when I feel and function better, those are days when I'm the opposite. I'm more hopeful and I can handle the challenges that life brings. We measure the first AM urine pH using pH or hydrion test paper with a high contrast color range of 5.5 to 8. After 6 hours of rest, but only after 6 hours of rest, when we rest for 6 hours, the urine in the bladder equilibrates with the cells, and so the non-invasive urine measurement is a reflection of the cell either having an excess of buffering minerals, which is better, or lacking them, which is not. And if we summarize what happens when you expose this paper to fresh urine, if it's too yellow, you're acid. The goal is for the paper to be green. And if it's fully blue, then that suggests a separate set of problems, catabolic illness problems, that also deserve to be addressed. We have, for your benefit, put together a food and chemical effects on acid-alkaline body chemical balance, the total metabolic impacts of foods and chemicals, and we have that as a chart. When you're repairing, we recommend 3/4 to 80% of what we consume should be on the alkaline-forming 4 columns to the left of the midline, and the remainder, the condiments in our diet, can be the dairy, meat, shellfish, and other condiments that we've made into staples in our diet. Now let's look at the diet we want from another point of view. 60 to 80% of the diet should be fruits and vegetables, lentils, pulses, and beans, nuts, seeds, and sprouts, herbs, sea salt, and umeboshi vinegar, duck and quail eggs. With modest intake, 20 to 40% of meat, milk, chicken, eggs, most oils, and some fruits and vegetables, consult that food effects chart for the details. We've also been able to rethink the predictive control system tests. And if you're concerned about inflammation repair deficit, measure the high sensitivity CRP, and the goal is to have an HSCRP of less than 0.5. If you're concerned about detoxification methylation, if you're concerned about epigenetics, measure the homocysteine, with a goal of less than 6. If you're concerned about oxidation and antioxidant status, measure oxidized HDL and LDL and 8-oxoguanine, and they should be close to 0. Measure stress hormone balance. Free cortisol and free DHEA at 4 different time points. Can be free hormones measured in the plasma or in the saliva. And if the proper rhythm and ratio is present, then we're well adapted to stress. If not, then we may need stress rehabilitation in our hormonal stress system. Checking for acid-alkaline metabolic status, the first AM urine pH, we want that to be in the 6.5 to 7.5 range. And how does this lead me to clinical action? Well, if inflammation and repair deficit have raised the high sensitivity CRP to more than 0.5, then I'm going to ask the person to do a C-cleanse and combine that with the resilience factors that we prefer to have. We would then individualize the amount of antioxidants that are taken in, as well as repair stimulating factors like polyphenolics, flavonoids and flavanols as supplementation and in the diet. If the homocysteine is greater than 6, then I get concerned about detoxification and methylation, and I want to enhance those capabilities. And what we do there is enhance the methylation factors, what we call PERK vessel health guard, and we take enough PERK vessel health guard to bring the homocysteine to less than 6. If the oxidized HDL, LDL, and 8-oxoguanine are above very modest levels, then we increase the antioxidants, starting with vitamins E, all 8 forms of natural tocopherol and selenomethionine, continuing with the individually determined ascorbate intake, and adding additional antioxidants as needed to reduce that oxidized HDL, LDL, and 8-oxoguanine to near 0. If the cortisol and DHEA balance shows unadapted stress, we recommend relaxation responses so that the cortisol rhythm can be restored. And if the DHEA is not able to be the mother to the estrogens and testosterones and other compounds that are so important in metabolism, we increase the DHEA intake so that the downstream hormones, estrogens, testosterones, and other regulatory hormones can be restored. And if the acid-alkaline metabolic status shows extra net acid, because the first morning urine pH is less than 6.5, we increase the mineral intake in the diet. We use PERK Bone Guard Forte 20, we use PERK Mag Plus Guard and PERK Choline Citrate, and we increase the PERK Mag Plus Guard and choline citrate, 2 capsules and 1 teaspoon taken anywhere from 1 to 6 times a day based on the net acid excess. Many people accumulate hundreds to thousands of milliequivalent excess net acid and compound that with some stress deadaptation so that it takes quite a while of replenishing the PERK Mag Plus Guard and choline citrate to restore healthy metabolic cell alkaline status. So the Alkaline Way restores, repairs, and defends the body. We now have a goal value set, prioritized or goal value set primary predictive tests, and we want to use those to understand which aspects of the body are in balance and healthier, and which ones are in need of repair and rehabilitation.